Okay, we're going to begin this story called CANALSIDE Angels. It's a story from It's a Rum Life in Retirement, and it's from 2010, and it's published this year, 2020, November, on the 10th anniversary of this actual holiday happening. It was our last holiday on Narrowboat Osprey, an older shared ownership boat in which we were very fortunate to have enjoyed several years happy cruising. The 2010 November 2-week break on Osprey began on a high. The journey to our boat's new base at Anderton at the top end of the Trent and Mersey Canal was trouble-free, despite making the journey with 3 four-legged friends. The boat was even moored so close to the roadway behind the marina premises that unloading was a dream when compared with the trials of canalside mooring at Braunston. The only down of that day was when lighting our wood-burning stove in the boat to warm us all up. In an endeavour to economise, we had bought some patent compressed blocks, specially produced for stoves such as ours and made from some sort of extruded vegetable. These blocks were supposed to give off more heat than coke or wood and last longer. Unfortunately, we were moored just outside the rather smart restaurant run by the Boatyard Company, and these blocks produced a smoke and smell that was undescribable. It was a cross between what you might imagine as mustard gas and the worst London smog. It was yellow and thick and hung around trying to cling to all the brick surfaces close to the boat. We heard all the restaurant windows being closed, and the manager came out in high dudgeon to tell us in no uncertain terms to shut it down or move away immediately. The blocks were discarded in the nearest bin, and quantities of good old coke poured into the stove to quickly burn away any residue. That calamity over, Saturday morning was bright and sunny. By 10 a.m. we were on our way towards the Bridgewater Canal, where we'd planned to go as far north as we could, due to the various stoppages we'd looked up on the internet in advance. The first 3 tunnels were fascinating, and simplicity itself, with the simple timings and fact that in the winter only daft folk were using the canal system, so there was no traffic. Monday night found us moored just outside the Trafford Centre, so close it was a short walk across the car park into the bright lights. These huge shopping complex was something we simple country dwellers had avoided and never ever visited previously. The bright lights attracted us, and on our first visit we were converted and bought super kitchen gadgets from M&S Home. I think it's safe to say, though, that arriving by narrowboat rather than by road was a big plus. Wednesday lunchtime, and we stopped at the plank bridge just beyond Lee. We were now officially in the Leeds-Liverpool Canal. The very helpful bridge keeper explained that stoppages before Wigan had not been completed, and so we could travel no further north. He explained to us the wonderful things to be seen in Manchester, and about good moorings by the museums and tram services to Salford Quays, etc. He also emphasised that the tank, as locals call the Barton Aqueduct, was open to shipping at 4:30 p.m. every day and stayed open all night. We turned here at Lee, and after watering up and returning for an afternoon trolling the charity shops in the town. Videos and DVDs provide our winter entertainment, and we were lucky to add to our collection and find good reading books too. Thursday morning brought the first hard frost and ice on the canal. No real problem, and while buying coke for the stove from the Bridgewater Marina, the owner explained that this canal does have a habit of freezing up solid. We passed the Tank Aqueduct over the Manchester Ship Canal in good time that same day, and stopped once more at the Trafford Centre. Excellent moorings here, quiet and a good towpath. No ice when we arrived, but a young lady in one of the Trafford Centre shops warned us that the weather forecast was not good. Friday morning was different again. The whole canal was frozen over to about ½ an inch. No real problem though, we could still understand that thicker ice could be. At Waters Meeting, that's the junction where the canal turns down to Manchester, a boat had passed and left a good channel into the city centre. We did manage to visit a couple of museums, literally just a few yards from the canal basin. But on returning to our boat, a friendly boater from Worsley told us not to stay because of the chance of being frozen in. We found a good mooring for the night back at the Waters Meeting junction opposite the railway Euro terminal. A large barge passed towards Manchester at 6:30 p.m. and returned at 8:30 with revellers and internal strobe lights. He turned at the junction and took his party-goers back to the city. There were large noises of ice crunching. Saturday morning was beautifully bright sunlight, but very sharp frost and very thick ice. We telephoned the boatyard for a forecast on Friday, as neither the radio nor telly on the boat was picking up a signal at all, and had not done so all the holiday. We explained that we had decided to return earlier than we expected. They told us that worse weather was expected. Proceeding down the Bridgewater Canal towards Sale, we'd no real problem until we arrived at the point where the previous night's barge had stopped and moored. Then the problems really began. It took 2 hours from there to get to Altrincham, forcing the ice constantly with only a very brief respite under the bridges. Finally, as we approached Altrincham town centre, the ice was piled up and our concern was for the boat. There was no possibility of running at reasonable engine speed and the ice was getting thicker. We stopped alongside a Halford depot about 300 yards short of the town bridge. After sitting and considering our position for a few moments, Ruth went up to the cockpit to retrieve our canal map and found to her surprise that a man and woman had appeared on the towpath. They asked if they could help and explained that their boat was in the Sale Cruising Club, about a mile back from where we were. They offered to telephone their mooring officer to ask if a place could be found for Osprey in their secure moorings. We telephoned Alan, our ownership syndicate secretary, to explain the fix we were in and to add the fact that we were well and truly stuck. Our new friends had explained that a narrowboat with one lady aboard had been stuck in thick ice in this self-same spot last year for over 3 weeks. Alan said go for it. The chance of a secure mooring was paramount. Roger and his friend Jill had contacted their mooring officer successfully and between them decided where Osprey could lie. We had to reverse for over a mile as the ice was far too thick to try and turn. Roger and Arthur, his Sale Cruising Club mooring officer, were waiting for us and quickly placed Osprey directly under a railway arch next to a steam narrowboat under repair. We settled in and began to weigh up what had happened to us. In 24 hours the situation had turned from unpleasant but manageable to absolutely impossible. Now though, thanks to our CANALSIDE Angels, Osprey was snug and safe in a lock compound almost under the Timperley Bridge. Roger, our saviour, explained that his boat was in the same wharf and he'd purchased it from Anderton Marina. In fact, his home was virtually within walking distance of Anderton Marina itself. He was a retired fireman, spending his holidays sailing yachts in the Mediterranean. When Roger offered to take Osprey back to Anderton once the weather improved, we could not refuse. So there we were in a nutshell. Why angels? Simply because they were heaven sent. Our situation had been seriously bad. The boat could well have been stopped by ice in the middle of nowhere, with no chance of help and no safe haven to leave her. Even in the middle of a town, who can say that she would have been safely moored for goodness knows how many weeks? We telephoned Alan again to tell him we were all safe and Osprey was snug as a bug. Roger and Jill invited us to the Sail Cruising Club Saturday night quiz night. Their huge clubhouse, over 70 boats in the club, is another mile north along the canal where most of the boats moor. We had to go by car. We formed a team with another of his friends and promptly won the quiz, providing our team with sufficient funds to pay for the liquid refreshment for the whole evening. Jill, Roger's wife, and Angel number 2 then won first prize in the raffle. A perfect end to a very strange day. On the next day, Sunday, Roger drove me to Anderton Marina to collect our van and explain everything to the marina staff. Monday saw us packing just as the first snow began to fall. It did not last long, and by 12:45 we were heading east and back to more mayhem, although we did not know the half. Arriving in Lincolnshire after a totally clear journey across the Pennines in bright sunshine, we found that half the roads were closed by snow and severe ice. Extensive closures were in place, and we had to divert off our normal route to find a road open to our Spilsby destination. Thank goodness for local radio, which enabled us to bypass Louth 10 minutes before the A16 was closed and over 60 vehicles were stuck for the night. Monday last, the 6th of December, this was in 2010, the day we left the UK to return home here in France, the temperature was minus 15 degrees in Spilsby. Osprey did not move from sail for another 10 weeks. And even then it took Roger 2 full days to get back to Anderton. Any Osprey owners passing sail and their wonderful cruising club, please remember they deserve a 20-gun salute for their unbounded help and hospitality. After this experience we decided to sell our Osprey share, as the travel to UK several times a year for narrowboat holidays, no matter how lovely they can be, was becoming just too expensive. There we are, that's the end of this little story, brought to you by Cracker Books, written and read by Keith Sanders. We've a new ending to all these stories now because we've had to change our website address. Now if you listen carefully, you can find the links to all Cracker Books publications. To date there are over 100 of these videos, there's over 200 audio stories, and to date there are 10 complete books. They're all completely free to download to any device you choose. Now the new link address where you can find all the information is richardsanders.hubside.fr. We've had to change the site of the internet site because this one's free. So it's richardsanders.hubside.fr. That's RICHARDSANDERS, no gaps, .hubside, HUBSIDE.fr. There's hours and hours of interesting listening there and watching.